Thank you for being here, still here. Okay, I'm going to talk about Loopring. So Loopring is a project that started back in August 2017. So we did ICO. So far we have developed and open sourced 3 major versions of our protocol. So we focus on one thing and one thing only, order-based trading protocol. We and 0x are directly competing with each other. We have 3 major versions, but we see that it's not being adopted very well. We asked ourselves why. The protocol is pretty well designed. It's optimized, it's audited multiple times. Why it's not being used? I think we know the answer. It's not a hard question to answer. So basically, the user experience is terrible. And among all of those user experience issues, I think the settlement finality is one major issue for professional investors, especially the market makers. They want to see their trades settled instantly, so that they can start more trades, right? We have even more outstanding issues in the throughput and cost, right? I will show you some numbers later, but our goal is to make sure the settlement is as soon as possible, way less than the Ethereum block time. We want to achieve a higher throughput, a very low cost, and we don't want to have a trade-off in security, right? So I think we have done this, but I'm going to show you gradually. Okay. So this is like a comparison between our 3 major versions. For Loopring 1.0, 1.5, and 2.0, we basically need 300,000 gas for each trade or transaction, settlement transaction. Sometimes I use these 2 terms. It's the same meaning, right? So that means in one Ethereum block, which has 8 million gas limit, we can put as many as 26 settlement transactions there in one block. And if we use 15 seconds as the Ethereum block time, we can calculate that the average throughput is like 2 trades per second. So last year, sometime we talked about, use DEX to be the centralized exchanges, right? This is a dreamer's talk, right? This is not going to happen with 2 trades per second, right? So, with Loopring 3.0, which has been open sourced, not yet audited yet, but we have those new numbers. So with zero-knowledge proof, we migrate most of our computations from on-chain to off-chain and leave only very minimum data on-chain. With the first option is that we turn on the data availability. That means we can use the blockchain data to reconstruct the state of the DEX at any given time in the history. So it's 100% provable by any third party. We managed to put 1,800 trades in one Ethereum block. So that means the gas cost is less than 0.20 cents per trade, given that Ether is about $190. So this is with data availability. Okay. If we remove the on-chain data availability, sorry about that, then we can even put more transactions in one block, 7,000 transactions in one Ethereum block, which means the gas cost is actually less than 0.05 cent per trade. But this is only the on-chain cost. We need to consider the off-chain cost, the cost for generating the zero-knowledge proof. If you know zero-knowledge proof, you know the proof generation takes a lot of time and CPU, right? So we did some tests on Amazon with a 48-core Xeon processor with a lot of memories. And the cost is linear to the number of trees, right? So if you take a look at those numbers, you will see that average cost per tree for proof generation is about 0.8 to 0.9 cent. So if we add those up, we have, I think it's still decent numbers. So with on-chain data availability, the throughput is 120 transactions or trees per second. And the overall cost is 1 cent. And without the data availability, the cost is almost the same, right? Because, as I said, the majority of the cost is from the off-chain proof generation. But the throughput is much better. It's 450 per second. So right now, we are focusing to make the option with data availability ready for production. So right now, we are just trying to doing a lot of optimization and make sure it works in Amazon, on Amazon AWS. So how we did this? So basically, off-chain we maintain a Merkle tree. We put everything in this Merkle tree. So the top part of this Merkle tree is the account subtree. Underneath each node or leaf of the account subtree, we have like token balance subtree, and then we have the trade history subtree. So it's like 3 tiers. The depth of each subtree can be configured pretty easily, so it doesn't really affect the design in any way. To modify this Merkle tree, you process different type of requests. So we now support 6 different types of requests, 2 for on-chain requests and 4 for off-chain. But a fully functional DEX only takes, you can only just support 3 requests to make this DEX functional. So the way we do the DEX works is by batching all those requests into blocks. So those blocks are not Ethereum blocks, it's our DEX blocks. So by processing each and every request inside the block, you modify the Merkle tree. And at the end of the processing, you get the final Merkle tree root. And you also get a lot of receipts, which represents the actual updates to the Merkle tree. And based on the receipts, you use a prover to generate the zero-knowledge proof. The on-chain part, oh, sorry, this is not there yet. So there are multiple ways to organize, to batch different type of requests into blocks. One way is to organize the requests in a timely order. But it turns out that circuits are not really good at processing multiple types of requests because that circuit is going to be huge and the gas cost is too much. The other way is to organize each type of request into their own small blocks. So in one block, there's only on-chain deposit, the other one is on-chain withdrawal, etc., right? So this one, each circuit is going to handle only one type of requests. So it's really can be optimized and the gas cost is really minimum. So that's the way we did it. And the other thing we found out is that the circuit is not really good at processing dynamic size arrays. So we have to process a block of 32 requests, 64, 125, etc., right? And if you don't have that many requests, you have to zero pad the block with a lot of default requests. All right, so we end up with one virtual blockchain for each DEX instance. So using Loopring 3.0, you can start your own DEX instance, and then boom, you have your own virtual blockchain. And each block in the blockchain is basically just the Merkle tree root. So it's 32 bytes. It's very minimum with some actual metadata. But if you turn on the data availability, then for each settlement, you also need to provide actual data so that anyone can use that data to reconstruct the Merkle tree. But for the other type of on-chain request, the on-chain withdrawal, the on-chain deposit, the data is already on-chain, so you don't have to provide any extra data. So that's a type of, the footprint for those blocks are really minimum. Then you can submit proofs, or you can submit the proofs for the third block, and then submit the proof for the first one, and then the second one. So in general, the rule is the block has to be submitted in the order, in the right order. But the proof can be submitted out of order. That means you can, after you submit all these 3 blocks, you can use a software to generate those proofs in parallel, right? So on Amazon, you can start a lot of machines to do the proof generation simultaneously. And we apply a max delay between the proof submission and the block submission, so that if you don't submit proof in time, you will get punished. And part of your stake is going to be burned or paid to the DEX users. All right, so there's another thing we need to force the DEX operator to do, which is to take care of those deposit or withdrawal requests. So for each request, there is a maximum request age. So before that, for example here, the deposit request. So before that request is going to be old enough, you have to credit the deposit into the off-chain Merkle tree. Otherwise, the DEX operator's stake is also going to be partially or fully burned. It's possible that some people just deposit a lot of small amount, right, so that the DEX operator has to take care of those requests, but don't have time to take care of other type of requests. So we applied a fee for each on-chain deposit, so to avoid simple attack. And then we also require that the maximum number of open deposit and withdrawal requests are restricted, right? So the DEX operator can set how many pending requests should be there. If we have too many requests, then no more requests can be submitted on-chain. Okay, so if something terrible happens, if the DEX operator stop responding to requests, stop doing like settlements, then under certain circumstances, the DEX is going to enter a withdrawal mode. In that mode, all the pending deposit requests can be canceled and all the money can be returned to the user. And anyone can use the on-chain data availability to reconstruct the Merkle tree and then to find the Merkle proof. And by submitting the Merkle proof, they can get all the tokens back to their own account. Okay, and all the stake by the operator got burned or distributed to the users. There is also a maintenance mode. So if the operator wants to operate to upgrade their backend, they can buy some downtime. They can say, okay, I'm going to stop service for 42 hours. Then they burn some token to buy the downtime, and then they can stop processing like new requests. But the old requests will have to be handled in time as well. So before they do stop the service, they have to take care of existing on-chain events or requests. So Loopring 3.0 has a lot of other features that has inherited from our previous versions. For example, we have a dual authoring technique that can prevent orders from being stolen by others. We gave each order a private key, a key pair. So in order to match a order, you have to access to the private key so that you can use the private key of the order to sign the whole settlement transactions. With Loopring 3.0, we have something called order aliasing. That means if you sell some token for token A or token B, you can submit 2 orders with full amount, and they can, combinedly consume the same amount of tokens that you want to sell. Anyway, there are a lot of other small features, and one, I think, a very important feature is that in 3.0, we completely remove the concept of fee token. So you have to pay with whatever you are trading. And we are currently designing a staking mechanism so that the protocol fee can be distributed to the fee holding smart contract and further distributed to LRC token holders. This is not perfect yet, so this is very early version. I think we can do a lot more to reduce the cost. For example, we can, if we use Sonic, we can avoid a trusted setup for our own DApp. We can use a global shared setup. If recursive SNARK is possible on Ethereum, we can do recursive setup so that we don't have to run the verifier on chain for every block. We can run the verifier for every maybe 1,000 block, and then treat the proof of the other blocks just as data, right? The off-chain computation does a lot of hashing, and right now we use this Mimic hash, the first version, it's a long name. We are going to change it to a better version, a shorter version, probably not as secure, but I think it's fine. The most expected optimization is making the prover work on GPUs. So that will greatly reduce the time we need to compute the proof. And lastly, but not least, we need a better support for security tokens. Because for security tokens, if you treat the security token for something else, and then if the buyer of the security token is end up finding that the token they purchased is stolen from somebody else, and according to the regulators, the token he purchased will be burned, it's a loss for him, right? So we need to make sure after the settlement, the fund cannot be used immediately. Maybe there's a T+1 or T+2, depends on different jurisdictions. So we need some other plugin to support different rules for security token trading. So that's it. I think we are pretty excited about the new numbers. I'm not sure it's ready to compete with all the centralized exchanges, but I think with these ones, we can compete with the small exchanges, right? They don't provide much value, and a lot of volume are actually was trading. So with Loopring 3.0, I think we can offer the same level of security as the underlying blockchain, which is Ethereum. And those numbers can really generate a lot of meaningful liquidity, real volume. So right now, we are in the middle of making this production ready. So hopefully in 3 to 6 months, you will see someone use this, this new protocol. So that's it. Thank you. You can use. Oh.
We have questions for Daniel Wang over there.
Hi, Daniel. Two questions. First is from a go-to-market strategy. Given the rough start in terms of adoption they've had in initial releases, what are you going to be telling the market in order to get people to move off of and choose you versus DEX? Or to go down the path, if you will, with Loopring's protocol?
Well, that's a good question. We are really not good at marketing, to be honest. We are a bunch of engineers. I think we need to show people that the technology is mature enough. We don't have to talk them into adopting. We need to show them the results, right? So we will help our partners to build a DEX to show the industry that running such a DEX is really cost less money, and it can bring user maybe not as the user experience is not as good as the centralized exchanges, but not too terrible. So we need to demonstrate this is usable. We don't want to just make a lot of noises, say, build on top of this. We need to build one for them. We didn't do a lot of product development on top of our previous versions because we tried a little bit, but we feel it's a waste of time and money. If we talk somebody into developing a product on top of an immature solution, they will eventually, go away, right? So there's no chance for them to use our 1.0, 2.0, or even 0x, the current version. There's no way to compete with current centralized exchanges. So going forward, I think we are going to help people to set up one and try to run it, fix performance issues. I think technology itself will attract a lot of people who are really who really understand the technology, right? If they don't understand the technology, I don't want to persuade them to use our technology at all. They should be, they should do the research.
All right, so the second part of the question was, initially you were going, Ethereum based, but you've also come with LRN and focused on NEO. Where does 3.0s fit in that scheme of NEO?
So NEO, I think we talked about NEO outside with some friends. I think the basic problem with NEO is their economic design is not good. The gas is too expensive. There's no way you can use their smart contract to write like complicated DApp. There's no way you can do that. So if they fix that and add zero-knowledge proof support, then maybe it's still possible to deploy on NEO, given, this is assumed they still have developers on top of NEO, right? I don't know, I think my focus right now is still Ethereum. Yeah, if the protocol works on Ethereum, it works on every other smart contract capable platforms. There's little we need to do, right? So a lot of projects like Qtum is EVM compatible, so we don't have to do much. Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes.
Hey Daniel, thanks for the great presentation. My question was mostly about SNARKs. Currently it's being used for settlements and basically scalability, right? And do you have any plan to add kind of anonymity, like basically privacy transactions, all this stuff for the exchanges?
Yeah, Snark can be used for privacy, but that's not something we want to do. As I said, we want to focus on DEX. Privacy is probably the requirement for the 1%, right? Maybe even less. We want to solve the most important problems for most of those traders. So performance is our focus, privacy is not. We probably are not going to develop anything related to privacy within a year or two. This is not something we want to do. And for security tokens, you don't want to offer security private trading, right? And we are really interested in supporting Polymath and tokenized token market, those companies to trade security token. You don't want to mess with the regulators that say, hey, we have a cool idea, this is privacy trading. No, we don't want to do that. Yeah. Cool. Great. Thank you. Thank you.